Okay, while I'm waiting for our last guest, I have a quick quiz here. Okay, he's got one down now, the hard question. I want you to write down on a piece of paper in 3 seconds, and then I'll tell you the answer at the end. How many megapixels did I use and was the camera that I used to take that picture? Just glance, write down your best guess of a number. What we're going to be working with is business on a tablet, and everybody has tablets of all kinds. I'm going to be talking primarily from the iPad view because I happen to have an iPad, and the majority, if you count heads around here, the majority in this organization have iPads, but this is what I happen to use. And here are 3 issues that I'm going to address. One is Office apps on a tablet, and that's kind of the heart of everything. People say, I'm not going to buy a tablet if I can't run Microsoft Office. And so I want to address that. Another big issue is file exchange between all kinds of devices, which is a major headache for people today. And very lastly, a little bit of time on the whole subject of remote login, so that if you can't do something on your tablet, you can at least get to a computer that can do it. Now, I have not given up my serious computer, which is a 27-inch Mac, which I do with like 3 terabytes of hard drive because I do a lot of video work, I do a lot of website and different things like that, so I chew through the hard drive pretty fast. But what I have done is I replaced my laptop with a tablet. So I still have this, my big computer, which I sit at hours a day, and if I really want to have a good computing experience, that's where I spend my time. But a lot of times if I'm away from the office, I don't have that, and so that's when I use the tablet. Here's what we're facing. Of course, you've all heard of this. Can you see? Okay. Clash of technologies and cultures, and my question is, how many men under 35 who are gainfully employed have more than one necktie and have rigid work hours and rules? And the other bigger question is, who makes computer decisions now in offices? And in the past, it was IT department. Everybody else, including the executives, were scared to death in big companies because they didn't know anything. And there's a lot of decisions they can make without knowing anything that don't cause trouble. But not knowing about computers and making decisions caused a lot of trouble. But now the people who are making the decisions are, at the very least, the managers, and to a greater extent, people like you and me who walk in the door and say, I want to be able to use my whatever gadget to get onto the systems. And the IT departments are just rambling, trying to make all this stuff work. So we're requiring people like us, ordinary people, to make computer decisions that we don't have any practice in doing. IT always did it. It was always their fault if it didn't work. In fact, if you went back to 1990 and you were going to bring a Mac to the office, this is what you would hear. Get out and stay out, you and all your hippie Mac-loving freaky friends. Direct quote. Didn't you hear Apple is dead? That's what they said in the late 90s. And of course, what in the heck is an Android? Well, think how we talk today, so different. Is Apple better than Android? And we don't mention Microsoft. If you're interested, at table 5, there's a fellow, Steve, that's got Windows 8. He's doing that. I wish I could sit in on it, but I'm busy, so I won't. Here's something to remember. Tablets are real, general-purpose computers like PCs and Macs. Not all computers are the same. For example, a Samsung S4 is perfect for texting and emailing and listening to music, but not so good for oil exploration and planning a trip to the moon. I worked on planning a trip to the moon on the Apollo program some years ago, so I know how hard that job was. General purpose computers, this is the definition. What's a general purpose computer? It's one that allows you to load software and run software. And the computer in your car or your toaster doesn't do that, or your microwave, whatever. Here are the issues that we run into with mobile devices. First and foremost is screen size. They're limited to about a 10-inch diagonal screen and smaller. Keyboards are good or not good, depending on who you talk to. The processors are underpowered compared to traditional computers. Memory and storage is limited. And the fact of change, no matter how good somebody is in technology, they get some and they want to keep it. There are not very many people like change. And apps, we have these things called apps, which were like programs, or they are software, but there's some subtle differences in the way the whole thing works that's causing a disruption. And the conversion, all our databases, all our documents, all our training materials, all our everything is based on the PC. And now we're starting a different course. But here's what's driven us to this. Microsoft Word has over 1,500 commands, and how many do you use? And do you have a list of other ones you want them to put in so it'll be perfect? No. You have a whole bunch that you can't find that you use all the time, like how to set the margins and things like that. We have a cluttered screen. What's the answer? Get a bigger screen. Not enough hard drive? We can always add more hard drives. It's getting cheaper all the time. Processor is too slow? You can buy an upgrade. It's time. You've had it for 2 years. Throw it away. Get a new one. But software, and particularly Microsoft Office, has driven the choices of hardware. Now that's changed. We're saying, I want to run my Office stuff here on a 10-inch screen with no hard drive. Now software people got to figure that out, and this is the struggle that's going on that I'm going to be talking about. Now here's an age-old question. Goes back maybe to Plato, I guess. And can I run Office on a tablet? And the answer is absolutely, sort of. But before I answer that question or go into that detail, do I have to use Office? Do I have to use Microsoft Office? And the answer is no, and I'm going to show you some alternatives that a lot of people are using, and this isn't all of them. But Open Office, these are full-fledged equivalents to Microsoft Office that are free, Open Office and LibreOffice, and you can download them today. And they're not on this handout. I'm sorry, I didn't put them on there. And so those are the top two and Zoho Docs, I've heard about that and tried it once, but I don't know that much about them. And I don't use these much at all. I'm just pointing out that there are full-fledged app equivalents to Office that are free. And if you had a company that had 50 employees and you wanted a PC on every desktop, and you could save quite a chunk of money if you put on a free software or a free app like that. So there is one problem, and you'll tell me the answer to it here in just a minute, but these programs will run on your PC. You download them for your Mac, just like Office. I ran it on my iPad using the cloud. So these images came from my iPad, not from my Mac. So I was running the same thing on the cloud. But here's a problem that I had. All of a sudden I was ready to type, and look what happens. There's my trusty old virtual keyboard popping up, which kind of destroyed some of the appearance. Does anybody know the solution to that?
Can it permanently go away? Can you minimize it so you can use them?
You know what you do with 2 thumbs? Spread your 2 thumbs apart on the keyboard and you split it.
I didn't know that.
Nobody knows that. And they didn't at the last table either. And you type on it just like ordinary. I'm going to look at 2 apps that are different than the ones I just talked about. Those that I just talked about, you can download. The whole idea was download them, run them like Office. Here's 2 that are very well known, that are cloud-based services that run Microsoft Office. And OnLive is the one to try. They're all free. You go to the OnLive website. And if you click, I think they ask for your email or something, but there's no charge, there's no big deal on registration. And when you start there, and I can do it from an app here, or I can do it from a website on my computer if I wanted to.
So of course all interchangeable, but if I were to use Open Office on my iPad, I've got Microsoft Office on my laptop.
I would, this is the big trauma, is trying to decide what do I buy, because nobody's going to tell me. And compatibility is the thing I go for. This, and my iMac are compatible. And that to me is worth billions. And trying to figure out the interchange and all that stuff, that's what you're going to spend a lot of time struggling with, and maybe I can give you some ideas here. And so if you go to the OnLive website, this is what you're going to see, or the app here. This is what's right off of my iPad. There's my screenshot, and it's Microsoft Windows. And you can see PowerPoint and Excel and everything right there. And if I decide to run one of those programs, this is what shows up on my iPad. Now again, there's this whole question of keyboards, And the keyboard thing is kind of iffy. Some of these remote servers will are programmed to recognize your physical keyboard, some aren't. So there's iffy things like that right now. But the main point I want to show here is this is a word processing document in Word. And if I wanted to enlarge it, I can just go up there and click on that little place up there. But clicking is with a finger now, not a mouse. And here's what it looks like when I try to adjust the size. No way I can touch that screen.
Does stylus work on those?
Yes, you can use a stylus. That would be helpful. Here's an example. This would be what it would be like if you started out and wrote PowerPoint on an iPad using PowerPoint on here through the cloud. So it's doable, and here's the whole issue. If you have something as big as Microsoft Office and you want to put it on a small computer, is it feasible at all to just squeeze it down and stuff it in? Or do you have to change it a lot, trim out a lot of the fat, and then will people call it Office? Or if it's that much different, why don't I use something else? Because they're all different than Office that I'm used to. So it's a real challenge for these companies. But I want to shift gears from PowerPoint. I do a lot of work for our Meals on Wheels program, and so I made this brochure. I drafted this brochure. We're not going to use the picture here. I just thought it was... I might use it, I don't know. But I developed that using a word processor. Now, if you've tried Word and tried to do graphics and everything on Word, you'll know it's a challenge. And some people say, well, you shouldn't use Word, you should use our design program or something, page layout program. Here's another one that I did right there, that flyer right there. I designed that using the word processor that's on here. It's Pages is what it's called. And just for fun, here's the one, gesture to learn, and that's move 4 fingers to the top, and you will see down at the bottom, you will see the programs that are running now. And there's Pages. Whoops, I did already spoil this for you. I'm going to delete that. Say this was an article you'd just written about at a meeting. You had a team meeting. You decided a lot of really important things. You wanted to circulate this. You thought, well, it's a pretty dull-looking document. How can I get people to read it? Well, one thing you could do is you could put a picture of the team in there, right? That'd be pretty nice. This was a big deal, this meeting. So we'll just switch over. Whoop. We'll get us a camera. And if everybody over here smiles anyway, at least 2 people, we now have a picture of our team, part of them. And we go back to Pages, the word processor. I say I want to add. I want a picture from the camera roll. And I get the 2 good-looking guys. Oh, I moved a little bit over here. There's the picture. I could move it. I think I like it up here and maybe move it around there. Try that on Word. 2 fingers. Or thumb and 2 fingers. Up at the wrench, up in the upper right-hand corner, share and print. I'm going to email it. Pages, PDF, or Word. It's that easy. Right out of the document. Now I'm running Keynote. This is their presentation program. I have given, this is about the 60th talk I've given with Keynote. Right. It's easier than PowerPoint and imports PowerPoint and exports to PowerPoint. And so you see up at the top here, and what I see is I see 2 screens, 2 slides. I see the current and the previous and the next one. And for me it's important because my slideshows are not canned by any means. I probably changed slides, a bunch of them last night. So I don't know exactly what's coming next, but I see it now, and I hate it when a presenter is looking at the screen at the same time as you are trying to figure out what the next slide is. I don't like that. I like them to be introducing a slide, the subject. But anyway, the Office tools that I'm showing here are all different ways of handling Microsoft Office or Office applications. The 3 that you can buy for an iPad or for an iMac or for an iPhone are Keynote, Pages, and Numbers. Presentation, word processing, and spreadsheets. Numbers is my least liked one. I will put together simple spreadsheets on here all the time. And I'll open Excel spreadsheets on here all the time. And I'll do that, but its screen size is the problem. It's not the program, because if you want to select 100 rows of a spreadsheet, and this is your real estate, or any formula that you type that's got more than 3 things in it, it's this long, you know. So Excel is my all-time favorite app forever, and I use it a lot for a lot of things. But here's the key things that happened very recently, and that is, this is kind of hard to understand, but this PowerPoint thing that I'm showing you right now, you could open a browser on your PC and work on this presentation without buying an app. I mean, that was a huge announcement. They made it at their last big Mac show a couple of months ago. And so all of a sudden, people have said to me, well, I like iPads, but I have a PC. How can I with things like Keynote and Word, all those things, well, now you can actually work on them here, work on them in the office, and they will be all linked together. So that's a big deal, but notice right underneath that, right here, Microsoft Office 365, I'm touching the screen right now. Microsoft Office 365 is now available on the iPad, which Microsoft announced right after that previous announcement, and you pay $99 a year for that. So, and following that, down at the bottom, Microsoft Office for Android was announced too. So they are all knowing, they all know this is a monster problem. They're all attacking it from every way they can before somebody gets locked into, this stuff or that stuff. And so it's a real battle. But Google Docs, Smart Office, Presentation Mobile, these are all kinds of tools that you can use. Most of them, I'm pretty sure, haven't tried them all, would import and export Office files. That's the big question. One more here, file sharing. This is a big deal and a huge deal. How do we get information? We don't just plug in cords and USBs and things like we used to do in the old days, because these are supposed to be mobile. You're not supposed to be wired. And Steve Jobs introduced USB to the world in 1998 with the first iMac computers. He killed it when he starts coming out with devices that don't have USB, because he and everybody else agreed, things are going wireless. We don't want any of these cables anymore, which has caused a real headache for lots of people. But these are the file sharing apps that I know about. I made a list of them. Dropbox is probably the best known general purpose, simplest one out there. I use it all the time with all my clients, or with anytime I'm on a committee. I say, okay, let's make a Dropbox account. With family members, I've got Dropbox accounts or Dropbox files. Most of those, BoxNet, SugarSync, those are all highly rated, but they start with like a limitation of 2 gigabytes of storage. Now, so it's, videos are pretty much out. Photos are okay. Text is wonderful. But if I invited you to join my folder, so we could all have a folder, and you didn't have an account, you signed up for an account, then I get, a toaster. I get 250 megabytes, I think, for every person who signs up as a result of mine. It's a good working scheme. The thing I don't like about those very simple schemes like this, there's almost no control, essentially no control. If I say you can share this folder, then the next day you open it up and throw everything away, or you change things in there that, it's not protected the way a real strong sharing system ought to be. But it's adequate for huge numbers of people. There's even an app in the middle down there, Docs is one, and Docs and FileMaster. Those are apps that merge all your other apps. So if I were to open Docs, it would show Dropbox, it would show SugarSync, it would show these, because the cheapskates, of course, are not going to pay for storage, so they get 2 gigabytes here, 2 gigabytes here, 2 gigabytes.
And then we're going to move into 45.
Recognize that game? Yeah, it used to be an old puzzle. This is what it was called. There's a new version of it, and it's traumatic, and it's called Where's Waldo's File? That's my invention, because this is serious for me, and maybe for everybody. But Waldo's File might be on my desktop computer, my iPad, my iPhone, my Dropbox, or Notesy, which is a note app which syncs with Dropbox, email, photo library, iCloud, backup drives, USB drives, or more than one. And I spent a ton of time. I mean, it's a nightmare getting the current version of it. This is being synced over here all of a sudden, and then maybe I made a copy and it's on my desktop. And all of a sudden I'm wondering, okay, the answer to the pixel question was, what did you write down? 16. 1.3 megapixel.
How come it looks so good?
Yeah.
because megapixels are completely overblown as importance. I took it with a 1998 $800 first digital camera ever, because that's when my grandkids were born. I bought the camera, and that rose was laying on 1.3 megapixels. That rose was laying on a kitchen table. I just had my camera and I just took a picture and walked away. That's all the preparation. But people are using this megapixel like horsepower. You know, this car will go 140 miles an hour, but the speed limit's 55. So